In 2018, I was still trying to find different genres of games and look for ones that had a solo mode included with their multiplayer. Unearth was my very first dice placement game that I got to play solo, and this was thanks to the Lost Tribes expansion. Since then, the game has been out of print, but lucky for you, the 10th anniversary printing of Unearthed is coming back to Kickstarter on April 21st. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. Hello everybody and welcome to the Boardgaymergirl channel. If you're new here, my name is Natalie and I like to talk about all things board games, but from a primarily solo perspective. Today we are going to be talking about a game coming to Kickstarter on April 21st, and it is Unearthed, the 10th anniversary printing. Now, before I get into this, I do want to say thank you to Brotherwise Games who are sponsoring this preview. Unearthed is a light to medium dice placement, card drafting, a little bit of area majority, a little bit of set collection kind of game. So there's a little bit of everything in there, but it's got a quick setup time, a quick learn and play time, and it had a solo mode thanks to its expansion, Lost Tribes. The anniversary edition that'll be coming to Kickstarter includes the base game, the Lost Tribes expansion, and new content in forms of seasons cards and a new mini expansion called Buried Lords. We'll be going over everything in this video, so we'll do an overview of Unearthed and how the general play works, what the expansions bring, and a special look at how the solo mode plays. Then I'll get into more specifics and what you can expect from the Kickstarter coming on April 21st. So without further ado, I will get into it, but if you don't want to hear me ramble about all of the things or are already familiar with Unearthed, you can just go to some of the key points in this video listed below. So Unearthed, the base game, plays for 2 to 4 players, but with the Lost Tribes expansion that can just be assimilated into the board game itself, it plays from 1 to 5. So in Unearthed, players are trying to get the most points by the end of the game. There are 2 different ways that you'll be scoring points during the game. You can either collect ruins cards, which will get you points at the end of the game for sets of the same type of ruin, or sets of all different types of ruins. The other way is by collecting stones. These stones you'll be putting into your play area and collecting circular areas where you'll have one gap in the center. This center area is for wonders. You'll be able to collect different wonders that are put out during the game, depending on the different color variations that you create your circle with. So for example, if you have a wonder that's on the table and the card is asking for 3 yellow stones and 3 other stones of any other color, once you collect that circular area in your play area, you can then collect one of the wonders that matches that, if it's still available, and put it in the center. And those will also score you points at the end of the game. So now that we have a general idea of what the goal of the game is, let's get into setup. Every player ends up getting a ruins card into their area, some delver cards dealt to them, and also a set of dice. Each player gets one set, which is in one color, of 3d6s, 1d8, and 1d4. These dice will be used to roll and place on your ruins cards in the market. So in setup, you'll be setting up a market of ruin cards, and these ruin cards have different colors, which again is how you'll score for them at the end of the game, but they also have 2 other important things to note. The bottom part of the card indicates the number of stones that you'll be placing on this ruin card once it's drawn into the market. So for example, if you draw a card and on the bottom it says 3, you'll be taking 3 stones from the unearthed bag and placing it on that ruin. These stones come in different types of colors, and we'll get more into stones in a little bit. The other important note on a ruin card is the number at the top of the card. This number tends to be a larger number, so say 17 for instance, and this indicates the sum number of dice that need to be placed on this ruin for you to hit or exceed that number to evaluate who gets that ruin card. So for example, all the different pips that you'd have from different players who have placed dice on that ruin, once you hit 17, you will evaluate who gets that ruin. The person who gets that ruin has the highest number of value on their dice faces to claim that ruin. But the players that do not get to take that ruin, but do have dice on that ruin, get to take a Delver card. Now, when a player takes a turn, there are two phases. There's the Delver phase and there's the Excavation phase. The Delver phase consists of a player being able to play their Delver cards, however many they want on their turn, within the restrictions of the Delver cards they have. For instance, there are some Delver cards where you can only play them if a player has rolled a 4 or higher on one of their dice rolls. There are a whole bunch of different types of Delver cards, which you can find out more for yourself in the Kickstarter campaign. But what you'll be doing is you can play however many you want, and then you'll be going to the Excavation phase. So during the Excavation phase, you'll be able to roll your die and place them on ruins. How this works is you'll take one of the dice from your area. If you have no other dice in your area, you'll have to take another die from one of the ruins cards out in the market and re-roll that to place it on a ruin. On your turn, before you do anything else, you need to say which type of die you're going to use to roll and which ruin you're going to roll that die for. So for example, with our 17 card earlier, I'll tell the table that I'm going for this 17 card and I'm rolling a d6. I'll roll that d6 and place it on the ruin no matter what. What number you roll lets you know if you are collecting stones or that's the end of your turn. If you rolled low, 1 to 3, then you'll get to take one of those stones from the ruin that you placed your die on and put it into your area. This is how you collect stones in order to try to fight for getting those wonder achievements before any of your competitors at the table. Because each of the wonders that are in play only have one tile for that wonder. Therefore, only one player can get that wonder during the course of the game. And that's part of the race of trying to go after wonders for points. But if you rolled a 4 to 6, nothing else happens. You rolled high and you are closer to collecting this ruin into your tableau. At the end of the Excavation phase, your turn is done and it goes to the next player. Play keeps going around the table in this way until someone flips the last card of the Ruins deck, which is an end of game trigger that can either be an event that applies or just another ruin. The game officially ends once all the ruins in the center area have been claimed. Then everyone figures out how many points they have, and then the person with the most points wins. So while this is a reprint campaign of Unearth, so most of the gameplay is similar to the same experience that you know and love from 10 years ago, but they have added something special that affects the Ruins cards and drafting. And this is called Seasons cards. These season cards get put into the game randomly in about the middle of the deck. When this card is flipped out, it just goes to the side and it affects the way that people will either claim or draft different ruin cards in the center area. These effects will go on for the rest of the game, and otherwise the game is played as normal. So it just throws a little bit of spice into your ruins. The other aspect of the game that is new is the Buried Lords expansion. The Buried Lords mini expansion brings in two different things. One is that every player will get an extra card at the beginning of the game. These are your Buried Lords cards, and there are 3 different types. There's a setup type, a passive type, and a once per game type. These have different abilities that will affect the way that you play and gives it a little bit of an asymmetry vibe for each player playing. The other thing is that they add some new stones into the game. So there are phantom stones, there are memory stones, and there are warp stones. So phantom stones can be played in a set of stones that you've collected in a circular area in your board, and can be any kind of color that you want in order to fulfill an objective of one of the wonders on the table. Now, this comes as a positive, but for that positive, there are always negatives. So each phantom stone that you have in your player area at the end of the game is -1 point. So it's an uneasy balance of risk and reward. A memory stone lets you take 2 Delver cards into your hand. So this just gets you more Delver cards, which again are those things that can give you different special abilities that can hopefully help you and hinder your opponents. And the last kind of stone that is in the Buried Lords mini expansion is the Warp Stone. And this stone is one that has a flipped side and an unflipped side. When you want to use this stone that you've claimed into your area, you will flip it to its flipped side. The ability that it has lets you take any 2 stones in your area and switch the places of those 2 stones. So again, these 3 new types of stones let you strategically think up some other ways of scoring those points or utilizing them to your advantage. Now, the last but most exciting part of this new campaign is the reprinting of the Lost Tribes expansion. At least it is the most exciting for me because this expansion is what expanded the base game from 2 to 4 players into 1 to 5. And the solo mode is a competitive mode, so the darkness, not the band, but this will be your automated opponent, comes with its own solo board, its own deck of cards, and 4 sets of D6 dice. Yes, that is correct. So many numbers. Anyways, the competitive darkness AI that you'll be facing has its own set of ways of collecting different stones and ruin cards from the main area. And it is a competitive variant, so you will have to score more points than the darkness AI. So on setup, when you are placing all those ruins cards into the center area, you will be doing 4 different cards. For each of those cards, you will roll one of the darkness's dice and put them on that card. Depending on the dice roll, you may or may not have to do something for the darkness. So if it is a 1 to 3, it will collect a stone from that ruin card and place it on its player board. The options, if there is more than one, you get to choose which color stone gets placed on the darkness board. If there's only 1 stone, well, you put that darkness stone you put that stone on the darkness board. When it comes to playing the darkness's turn, what you'll be doing instead of rolling a dice or playing Delver cards is you'll be playing one of its cards from its deck flipped up into its player area. You will do something based on how many types of ruins cards are either the same color or are 5 different colors. So when you flip these ruin cards, you have a reminder on each of these different types of darkness cards for what sets you'll be looking for, and therefore what ruin cards that the darkness will be taking and collecting into its own little score pile. So on one side of the card, it'll say if you have 3 of the same type, you will either take the rightmost or the leftmost ruin in the selection from the market. And it'll indicate this with different icons on the bottom of the card. Now, if you have 5 different types of ruin colors from the darkness deck out, then you will move to the other side of the card where it indicates a specific card that you'll be taking from the ruin selections in the center of the board and putting that into the darkness's score pile. At the end of the game, the darkness will score its ruins cards similar to how the individual player will score those ruins cards. So sets of matching, sets of different types. And then the main player board that collects stones is also scored, but it's scored in a different way than you would. So the darkness board collects stones, and these stones, when you collect a set of 3, are called crystals. When a darkness has completed 1 whole crystal, so let's say there are 3 blue stones that the darkness has collected, it's completed one of those crystals, and they'll get points for however many crystals they fulfill by the end of the game. Now, if you have fulfilled one of the crystals, so you've gotten all 3 blue stones, but the darkness is set again to take another blue stone from a ruin card based on their roll, then those extra ones will be placed on the bottom, and those will also score different points for the darkness at the end of the game. So there's a few different ways that the darkness can score points, and it can be very competitive. Now, before closing out the video, I will just say that there will be a retail version and a deluxe version of the Unearthed 10-year anniversary reprinting. The retail version will still have the base game, the Lost Tribes expansion, the new Buried Lords expansion, as well as the new season cards, which is an update from the base game that was from a long time ago. The deluxe version has all of the same bits, except some of the components will be deluxeified, so wooden tokens and whatever else comes out on the campaign page. Now, who is this game for? Well, I find it's easy to learn. Pretty simple, only the 2 phases that you'll be playing on your turn. And then it's got a whole bunch of different mechanics that you're using, but dice rolling and dice placement is a big deal for this one. So it plays quick. I think it's probably around 30-ish minutes, depending on player count. And again, for me solo, it played pretty well, but I do not have the new prototype, but it is said to be similar or exactly the same as the first printing, with some rules tweaks that make it a little smoother of an experience for onboarding. Now, again, you can catch this campaign on Tuesday, April 21st. And again, thank you to Brotherwise Games who sponsored this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!